On the subject of being conflict avoidant, I am going to speak about people who cope by being dismissive or avoidant. Now, there is an almost ironic relationship of being dismissive to avoid conflict, but that then turning into abuse. If you're avoidant, there is a risk of abuse from the more pursuing or from the person who is more willing to engage in conflict. But there's also a risk of you becoming abusive by way of your dismissiveness and avoidance. And here's a few ways that that can manifest. One way of being dismissive is being aggressive. I know if I get loud enough, if I get intimidating enough, if I raise my voice, then I know you're going to back down and I don't need to have this conversation. It might not be about the other person as such. It might be more about protecting yourself. You're anxious. You don't know how to deal with these heightened emotions. And that's the only way you know how to manage it. Another form dismissiveness can take is, maybe not being in the same room. I'm not even going to have this conversation, or we're not having a conversation full stop. But it can also turn into things like gaslighting. It can turn into things like minimizing the other person's experience. And these are areas where it starts to roll into being abusive. Now, that said, there's no judgment. Some people don't know that what they're doing is abuse until you call a spade. And then it's like, oh, I didn't know I was doing that. I need to change it. I was just trying to protect myself. That's why I was doing it. Something that can help is there's a resource online called the Duluth Wheel, spelled Duluth. And what it does, it just outlines different forms of abuse and gives you descriptions so you can pinpoint what's what. Now, a lot of the versions that will come up first, if you Google it, are geared towards a male perpetrator and a female victim. If that doesn't fit the model of your relationship, or it's not a romantic relationship that you're in, then there are more general versions or ones that are more specific to your situation that you may be able to find online. That said, one of the honorable mentions of dismissiveness is narcissists. If you're dealing with someone who is narcissistic, perhaps showing them the Duluth Wheel isn't the best way to go, given that they don't want to be confronted with anything less than ideal about themselves. That might end poorly, but it could be useful for you to look at the wheel and say, oh, this is what I am going through. I'm not crazy for feeling this way. This isn't acceptable. Maybe I can decide what I need to do from there. And again, on the subject of narcissism, while narcissists do have a rough time themselves, this isn't your cue to then say, oh, narcissists are feeling XYZ, that's why they're dismissive, I need to start rescuing them. It's not your job to save anyone, especially if they're not going to do the work themselves. So that will be all I'll say about narcissism, because I think it deserves its own separate video. Another honorable mention on this kind of subject is autism. If you're in a relationship with someone who's autistic, or you've got a family member, or maybe yourself, that can come with things like rejection sensitivity and PDA, pathological demand avoidance. Both of these things can lead to dismissive behaviors or avoidant behaviors, to the point where someone might not feel that they can have a conversation that's going to be uncomfortable for the autistic person. They've got to tread on eggshells because they know that it's just not going to go down well. If this is the case, there are great resources online by a man named Mark Hutton. He's got an ebook. He's got, I should mention, it's tailored towards couples, neurodiverse couples. So he's got an ebook. He's got a YouTube channel. He's got his own website. He's got courses that you can do. He provides couples counseling as well for neurodiverse couples, as do I. But I really would recommend checking out Mark Hutton because I think his stuff is amazing. So I hope that this kind of helps to give some things that you can do if you've experienced either someone who's being dismissive in this way, or maybe you think someone is might be narcissistic, or maybe you are in some kind of relationship with someone who's on the autism spectrum. And also just to shed some light on the fact that it can turn into abuse. Maybe you're the dismissive or avoidant person and you don't realize the effect that you're having on someone else. I hope that it's been somewhat useful, and I'll see you in the next video regarding dismissiveness.